Welcome to episode 90 from the Shed End. Theo, how you doing?
Not bad. Again, Chelsea defeat weekend slightly ruined because of that. But again, it's starting to look like the start of spring. Sun is shining here in London. I'm not sure what it's looking up north, but at least here it's blue skies. And it really does feel like a spring day. So at least that's cheering me up a bit on a Monday afternoon.
I can assure you it's grey clouds, just like Chelsea. It's grey, rain. Um, it's meant to be forecasted for some decent weather, I think, at the weekend or the back end of this week. So I'm looking forward to that. But grey cloud over Stamford Bridge again this weekend. Before we get into the Brighton game, please, if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like, share, all of that stuff. Make sure you hit the Linktree link as well in the description. Takes you to all the previous episodes as well, where we actually enjoyed recording the podcast, where we had our very good moments, where we were winning Champions Leagues, we were in the FA Cup final league. Go back and listen to all of those, because this episode might be a bit more doom and gloom after the result on Saturday. But Theo, another defeat to add to the other two that Frank Lampard's got since he came back. Welcome home for Frank Lampard. What it was supposed to be didn't turn out that way. What was your thoughts against Brighton? Let's start with the lineup first. What was your initial thoughts on our lineup against Brighton?
Yeah, well, I thought we'd had to rotate and rest some players that were definitely going to feature against Real Madrid tomorrow. So it made sense to rotate. Again, back four, which is something I'm not a big fan of. It was Fofana and Badiashile with Chilwell and Chalobah at right back. Kepa retained his spot as number one because I think Lampard confirmed a bit later on that Mendy's still recovering from that injury he has. I was actually expecting Mendy to start, but if Mendy's not 100% fit, then it makes complete sense to keep Kepa between the sticks. Um, yeah, I guess it made sense to rest Silva for the big one in the Champions League. So I think defense maybe made sense. Maybe it didn't make sense to stick to a back four, given that Cucurella has been out of form. Aspie's maybe still not 100% fit. Um, Midfielders, I'm trying to remember who featured. Was it Gallagher and Enzo, I
Zakaria.
believe?
Yeah.
Zakaria, that's right, yeah. Zakaria, who I don't think's featured at all since his injury against Fulham at Craven Cottage, and I think it showed actually. I think the two kind of players that were really shaky, especially in that first half, were Zakaria and Trevor Chalobah at right back. And those two players, I think, haven't featured an awful lot in 2023. So I think that was very apparent. Um, then Mudryk, it was good to see Mudryk get some minutes, and I thought he looked quite solid. He had a really sharp start, and what I thought was quite a good shot towards the end, and probably our biggest chance of the game after the goal in a way. And then who else was there? It was
Yeah,
Sterling,
Pulis
who
as well.
Pulisic and Sterling, who were very ineffective. Again, I can't really remember them doing much other than maybe trying to get past some of the Brighton defenders and then just losing possession. And I'm a big fan of Sterling, but I do think something that was really frustrating, and it was frustrating the crowd at Stamford Bridge on Saturday afternoon, is he slows things down a little. He gets the ball in the wing, and instead of just driving forwards like Mudryk would do, like Eden Hazard would do back in the day, he just kind of stops the ball, lifts his head, and looks for a pass, whether that be backwards or sideways, and instead he should be trying to take on whoever's in front of him. But yeah, lineup I guess made kind of sense. I think Havertz and Loftus Cheek injured according to Lampard, so didn't feature. Mendy still not fit. Aspie maybe still recovering, so he was fit enough to make the bench, but didn't come off the bench. So yeah, I think it's one of those games that it makes sense to rest your star players in Kante, Silva, potentially Felix, and those type of guys for the game against Madrid.
Yeah, I mean it was a lineup that we kind of both predicted would be, have a lot of changes, and there would be a lot of rotation with the game in mind for tomorrow. But Dennis Zakaria, I mean, we haven't. I mean, we joked before, because if you remember under his time under Graham Potter, he hadn't started, and then he had that sort of one or two, 3 games where he played actually half decent. He had a good sort of run for 3 or 4 games, but to throw him into a game where Brighton are going to press you from the moment the game kicks off, and there's going to be a lot of expectation for him to be on top of things in that midfield. It was a massive ask for him, I think, as well. And I get why Frank Lampard wanted to rest, N'Golo Kante. I potentially would have played him and maybe rested Enzo If I'm honest, I think he potentially, like we said on the last episode, has played pretty much every game he's played since he signed for the club. He maybe needed a rest to freshen him up for Tuesday against Real Madrid. Everything else made sense apart from Kepa. Maybe would have gave Mendy if he's not fit. Then I didn't know that, but it makes sense. Kepa again maybe needs a rest. Question we can talk about later against Real Madrid, but it was difficult, I think, for that defense. You look at the defense; it was very. I don't want to call it inexperienced, but it was very, very young. In terms of Badia Shield, Wesley Fofana, Trevor Chalobah, Ben Chilwell. You potentially look as the most experienced in terms of defenders that we had on the pitch, but they were run ragged. You look at Matoma, who I thought was brilliant. We have to credit Brighton. They played really well throughout the game. Evan Ferguson as well, brilliant player. Going off, and you see Danny Welbeck come on, and you automatically think they're going to score a goal because he loves to score against Chelsea. But I want to talk about the fact that Patrick Pierre-Emerick nearly done it again. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I don't know why I've got Patrick on my mind whenever I talk about him, but he wasn't involved in the team again. It's something I just don't understand, where we're lacking goals. We're lacking someone who's in front of goal. He's not playing on Tuesday. He's not in the squad. You've got Raheem Sterling, who, as we know, has zero confidence at the moment. Surely Aubameyang has to, regardless of what people are saying. He might leave the club in the summer. Fair enough, but he's still contracted at Chelsea. He's still employed by the club. He's still an option. He's on the bench, so he's clearly an option. Was that a strange decision for you from Lampard not to play him, knowing that he's not to be included in tomorrow's squad?
Very strange, and I think as well the steps leading up to the game kind of indicated that he would start. I mean, we both had him in our predicted lineups. He played, I think, the final 10 or 15 minutes at the Molineux last weekend. He wasn't in the Champions League squad on Wednesday night, so couldn't feature against Madrid. He's not going to feature on Tuesday night tomorrow. So I think everything was indicating that he would start, or at least come off the bench to have an impact in the game against Brighton, but he didn't, which was very strange. And what was even more strange was the players that came off the bench. I think Hakim Ziyech is another one that I think doesn't have a future at Chelsea. Zakaria, like you just spoke about, it was a big ask for him, having not played a lot of football lately, and it's looking more and more likely that we're not going to make that loan permanent. And I think even I WhatsApped you the day before the game and said I don't think he'd even feature at all again for Chelsea. And then next thing you know, he's in the starting 11. So I think if these type of players are getting minutes, then why isn't Aubameyang getting minutes or starting? He's a proven Premier League goal scorer. Lampard, I think, even tried to sign him when he was at Arsenal back in 2020 or something like that. So I think it's a player that must start. I kind of don't know what our next Premier League game is. I think it's postponed next weekend. But I think we've got Brentford midweeks at some point. I think that's a game he's just got to start. We're lacking goals at the moment. We've got one goal in our last 5 games. We've got a player who knows where the back of the net is. He had a good spell in that kind of October period under Graham Potter. I just think it's time to bring him back in the team. Allow these players like Enzo, like Mount, like Felix to play around them. Have a player at number 9 who knows how to score, and maybe these players can gain a bit of confidence by getting assists or having that fluid football around them. But it doesn't look like we're going to get there at the moment with the players that we're starting. Like you said, Sterling, who's really low on confidence. Felix, who looks isolated in every game he plays and hardly touches the ball at times. So yeah, I think Aubameyang needs to start now, and I was really frustrated he didn't even get a single minute against Brighton.
Strange. It is a strange one. Let's talk about Conor Gallagher's goal, if we can call it a goal. I did say, if we score goals, it's normally a fluky, a bit of luck, and there was definitely luck in that goal. It took a massive deflection before it went past Sanchez. It didn't fill me with joy, I'll be honest. I didn't celebrate. I'm at that period of the season where even if we score goals, I automatically think, one, VAR. I always think that now. Even if there's no one offside, I still think VAR. Let's wait to see if there's a VAR moment, but there wasn't, obviously. And also, I think we're never a team at the moment who, when we go 1-0 up, look like we were able to shut the door, or we were able to go and get that second goal to kill the game, or the third goal to kill the game. We always allow teams to come back in, and when we scored a goal, good shot. It was very fluky. But what was your thoughts on Conor Gallagher's performance as well? Someone who does work hard for the team, but clearly isn't always a first team regular.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the goal to start off, we were joking with my friend who I sat next to at the game, because I think a couple minutes before the goal, one of the Brighton players had deflected off and then went for a corner. And we joked saying that, the only way that we'll score a goal is if we just hit it on the Brighton players and it might eventually go in. And then a couple of minutes later, that's how we scored our goal. So yeah, a bit of a fluke, but the Chelsea fans nevertheless chanted, we scored a goal. We scored a goal. But yeah, I think in terms of Gallagher's performance, I think he's a very useful asset to have in a squad. What I do like about Gallagher is his work rate, his energy. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He'll run the whole length of the pitch to try to retrieve the ball. We know that sometimes he can be a bit erratic, and sometimes that can be a bit dangerous for us. Going back to that, those 2 yellows he picked up against Leicester earlier in the season. But I somehow do hope that maybe Lampard, being a perfect number 8 and box-to-box midfielder, can install some kind of qualities in him that he needs to be that player. But I think what we haven't seen enough of him this season is goals. At Leicester, I think he had 6 or 7 goals last season, and he scored some crackers as well. And he's only got 2 now. That was his first at Stamford Bridge, in a Chelsea shirt. But I do think he's a useful player. It's quite hard for him as well because he doesn't always get a consistent run of games in the first team. He often features off the bench or starts a game that doesn't start the next one. But I think it's a player that he almost joined. I think it was Everton or Newcastle back in January. I think almost came very close. Yeah, it might have been both. I think 40 million it was. And it's another player that I think his name will be mentioned a lot in the next couple of months with an exit, given that we have to recoup some money for FFP reasons. But I think he's a good player. He's got great energy. He fits that kind of homegrown criteria that we need. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the highlights of the game was Gallagher's performance and energy and work rate he brought on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think I always sit on the fence with players like Conor Gallagher because we don't see them enough. We haven't seen a consistent run of games where Conor Gallagher what can he do? How does he perform? After 10 games in the team, he just doesn't get that run of games to say, is he good enough to maintain a starting position in the team? So I think it's really difficult to judge him based on the fact that he's coming off the bench or he's starting, like you say, 1 game, misses another 2 or comes off the bench as a sub. So we're not really seeing that the consistent run of games for him. So it is difficult to judge him, but I thought he played really well. I thought he played really well on Saturday. He is, to me, still a headless chicken, but I like that about him because he can, he'll get around the pitch or make things happen. He's one of the players that if we do lose possession of the ball, he's one of the first to try and recover it back. Which I want to talk about in a minute because both goals, if you remember both of them, we had possession of the ball before Brighton scored. But Conor Gallagher, for me, is someone who he does the dirty work. He almost reminds me slightly of Kovacic a couple of seasons ago. Likes to drive forward with the ball, isn't scared to get back and get the ball. Like you said, box to box. He is that sort of midfielder for me. But the first goal, Welbeck's goal, I think it is Kovacic that might give it up. I can't remember if it's Kovacic or whoever loses possession of the ball. I think it ends up with Solly March on the right-hand side, whips the ball into Danny Welbeck. Fofana and Chalobah, both of them try to challenge Welbeck, but neither actually do anything. But if you notice about Brighton, whenever they've got the ball and they're going forward, the amount of numbers, they've got 3 or 4 bodies in the box, and we used to be like that. If you remember, with like you mentioned before, Hazard and those sort of players, when we'd get the ball, we'd pick it up on the halfway line or wherever, we'd get it into the box. There's 3 or 4 Chelsea players in the box. Brian done that to us. They didn't give us any time on the ball. And as I said, when we went 1-0 up, you just knew that goal was coming from Brian somewhere. Danny Welbeck, of all people, did you feel that goal was avoidable? Could we have done better before the build-up? Because it was, for me, a goal that we could, again, I've said it, I think last week and the week before, our goals that we're conceding are so, they're avoidable. And we just seem to let teams come back into the game.
Yeah, it was very avoidable. Credit to Brighton, like you said initially, because every chance they had, it looked like they were going to score. And even before the Gallagher goal, I think might have been Matoma who whacked it against the crossbar. And I think they had they had loads of different chances in that first half and second half. And I think the better team actually won that game of football. But in terms of the first goal, it was avoidable for me. I think that ball was crossed almost in slow-mo. And it just felt a bit clumsy from the centre backs, and Chalobah, who just couldn't really get up in time to challenge Welbeck for that header. It almost felt like they were almost scared. So I think it's something, again, it's across. It's almost, it feels like a set piece, and we just haven't really been practicing these enough, or we don't know how to defend set pieces at the moment. So yeah, I think again a goal that was very avoidable, and it almost felt like 2-3 passes similar to the Madrid game on Wednesday. And next thing you know, Brighton are in that position where they can cause some damage to us. So we need to work on that and not losing possession ourselves in our own half, but also not letting these teams get these dangerous balls into the box and defending with a bit more leadership, I suppose. Like, I don't think, had that been Silva jumping for that ball, I don't think Welbeck scoring. Had it been maybe even Koulibaly, I don't think Welbeck scoring, but it looked like a bit inexperienced from Fofana and Chalobah trying to get to that ball. And again, Badiashile for the second goal, I thought maybe not closing down enough, or so very two avoidable goals in a way. And it almost feels like every time we allow these teams to score these world-class goals, it's always against Chelsea. I don't know if that's, I don't want to blame Kepa anymore, because he does get beaten a lot from long range, but it was a brilliant strike for the second one from Enciso. But I know that you maybe want to talk about Badiashile for that second goal.
Do you know, I do, but I'm going to take it back a bit before then, because it's Reece James for me, who before there's even an opportunity for Brighton to score, I think I'm going to say there's 3 Chelsea players. One of them's Reece James. I can't remember who the other 2 are, but we should retain possession of that ball. Reece James has got the ball, so there should be no way that Brighton from that should then be able to score. So I think Reece James has the ball, he loses it. I think it ends up with back in our half, someone lobs it back to Enciso. Then, if you remember, I think it's again Reece James, Trevor Chalobah, who have that sort of weird lack of communication, and Enciso keeps the ball in. I think it hits the, oh no, this is the chance. Sorry, no, I'm getting them muddled up. So this is the chance, and Enciso had, it hits the post. He hits the post first, I think, before he scores. And Reece James and Chalobah, there's just lack of communication between the two of them. And Danny Welbeck should score. He should score. He skies it over the bar. But for the goal itself, yes, I'm going to take it back now. It's Monday morning or Monday afternoon. Yeah, Badiashile should close him down. He should close him down 100%. And yes, Kepa gets beaten, from long range, worldies, but our defense doesn't help him. Our defense does not help him at all. We got to see it on Wednesday against with Asensio. We got to see it again on Saturday. Brilliant goal from Brighton. I think it's his second goal, I think, for Brighton in a short span of time.
But Nunez again for Wolves, again, world-class goal, but not closing him down. Cucurella.
So it's not just the goalkeeper. I'm not saying the goalkeeper's not at fault at all. And I do think if we had a better goalkeeper, there might be an opportunity. We had an Alisson, or we had a world-class goalkeeper. Yeah, exactly. As well, we had someone who's able to just put the hand out a bit further. Maybe, but I think the defense has got to help him. The ball shouldn't even get to the point where Kepa's got to make the save. That's what our defense is for. And if they're not doing the job, then the defense has to take the blame. Badiashile's too slow. He almost walks towards the ball. You've got to charge with aggression. You've got to charge out for that ball, and you've got to stop that. Whether you've got to put your whole body on the line, you've got to stop the ball getting to Kepa. We don't do that. So I think when it was 1-1, I always thought there's going to be an opportunity for Brighton to score. Matoma was looking. He's not, with the greatest respect to Brighton, he's not a Brighton player. He should be playing top level. One of the top clubs, and I think he will. I think he's that good. You watched him on Saturday, and he's just. I know it was Trevor Chalobah, and he was out of position, but playing right back. But it's just he reminds me of Eden Hazard with the ball. He really does. I don't know what you think about Matoma, whether he has those sort of Hazard traits, or should he be playing at a top, I don't know, a top 4 club. I don't want to say top 6, but top 4. Surely he should be going to top European club somewhere.
Yeah, I think I called it out in the previous episode. I said he was the player to watch, and he will end up at a top 6 club. With all due respect to Brighton, but he's a fantastic player. His burst of energy, his dribbling. Every time he had the ball on that left hand side, in that first half, because I was in the West Lower, every single Chelsea fan would kind of like shrug and sigh, thinking, "Oh God, here he goes again," in a way. And we just gave him too much space there. That's the one problem. I think Chalobah, obviously playing a bit out of position at right back, wasn't closing him down, was getting beat way too easily. And we were allowing him to just penetrate inside our penalty box too easily as well. And I think a few times he had some scuff shots that could have easily on another day gone in, given how good of a player he is. But yeah, fantastic player. I wouldn't be surprised if we're linked to him this summer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. One person we are going to be linked with is Romelu Lukaku, who I think is.
God.
Well, you know what? I've come round. I think this morning, I don't know if it's just Monday, and I'm trying to be optimistic, start the week on a high, but I think I'm coming round to the idea of Lukaku coming back to Chelsea now. I just, you sent me a really good piece from Twitter, the journalist, and I will quote him in a minute. I'm gonna quote him so I don't misquote him. But that was a really good piece of work that he'd done. Yeah, RJP journalism. So really good piece. If you haven't followed him on Twitter, make sure you do. Breaks down basically everything we need to do in the next 30 days or so to try and comply with FFP. But in terms of Lukaku, I just don't see anyone. If obviously the news that's come out this morning is Inter Milan have decided that they don't want to retain Romelu Lukaku for another season. It almost looks like he's going to come back to Chelsea. I'm coming round to the idea that we need a striker. Aubameyang looks like he's going to get his name changed to Patrick, seeing as I keep calling him Patrick. But I think Lukaku coming back, maybe with Nkunku as well. We have to remember we've got him. If we don't keep João Felix, we've got Mudryk, who looks, as you said, a good player. Mason Mount might find the form that he did with a new manager in charge. Lukaku coming in is it really that bad of an option? I mean, he's keeping Inter Milan in the Champions League. They're all thereabouts in the Serie A. Is the door still ajar for Lukaku in your opinion?
I mean, I always said that the problem with Lukaku was his relationship with Tuchel, which clearly was very toxic, and they didn't see eye to eye. And Bowley even told him last summer that he wants him to stay. He's part of his plans, etc. And then they had a very positive conversation, Todd and Lukaku. And then I think it was Inter Milan come June time they came calling, and he went to Inter on loan. He is a number 9. He knows how to score. We know how good he was before that interview period and before that, I think, injury picked up in October against Malmo in the Champions League. But it's whether the fans will forgive him. I know that football is quite a funny game and how you hate a player, but then as soon as they score 2 or 3, the past is forgotten in a way and you'll start cheering for him again. But for me, I want a player who's committed to the shirt, to the badge. And from what Lukaku said in the past, it doesn't seem like he is. I think he's got this big ego where he, feels like if he loves Inter so much, let him stay there, let him fight for his position there. But I don't know. I'm still very on the fence as well. Like I just said, we've scored 1 goal in our last 5 games across competitions. And so clearly our problem this season has been scoring goals. Defensively, at times you look relatively solid, but our problem has been scoring goals. And does Lukaku solve that without spending an awful lot of money in the transfer window on someone like Ivan Toney, like Victor Osimhen, like Harry Kane? Not that we're ever going to get him. Maybe, but I just don't want the same Lukaku we saw end of last season, who was very lethargic, who was complaining, who was telling lies as well. But then new owner, new manager, it might be a new chance for him to redeem himself with the fans. I do think some kind of apology or statement is needed on his behalf again. That's very important. But like you, I'm slowly on the fence. I think I said a few episodes back that I'd only let him come back to Chelsea to scrub the boots of the academy players. Maybe now I let him come back to scrub the boots of the first team players. But
he stepped up a little bit.
he stepped up indeed, yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at his stats for this season for Inter Milan, and they don't not the best. I mean, he's played 18 matches. He's missed a lot of football due to injuries. This is just for Serie A, so he's played 18 league matches and scored 3 goals. Champions League, 4 games, 3 goals. Coppa Italia, 2 matches, 1 goal. So it's not the prolific Lukaku that was at Inter Milan, 2020, 2021 season. This is the Lukaku that really Um, hasn't been hitting the back of the net as much as he should have. So there is a massive question mark for me in terms of does he actually need to maybe come back to the club, but we still go and get another striker? I think that could be another option. Do we go and get Ivan Toney, who for me potentially will be the cheaper option out of some of the names you just mentioned there? And Ivan Toney's looking brilliant. Ollie Watkins. I mean, why not Ollie Watkins? Someone who we know can score goals, but Lukaku hasn't been firing this season, and he's missed a lot of football due to injury. So, do I think he's coming back 100%? If Inter Milan aren't going to take him again for another season, I don't see him going anywhere else on loan. Who can afford his wages? You also have to think, do the club really want to take a massive hit on not getting anything back from what was paid to bring him into the club as well? So there is that. I think he needs to try and get his value back up, or change his image slightly, show that he can actually score goals again, and goes back to come back to Chelsea, and even if it's off the bench, or I don't know, but I think he comes back. I think there's no question around it now that he's coming back. If Inter are saying they don't want him, where else can he go? Where else would he go? I don't see it. Would I want him back? Potentially, no. I still want Ivan Toney. Been shouting it for about 3 episodes now, but I want a proper goal scorer. So if he's going to play backup to someone, which he could do, if he's not scoring goals currently for Inter, then why should he come back and just slot straight back into the team? I still want a prolific goal scorer, and if he wants to prove himself at the club, then by all means he can do that. But I just don't see where else he's going to go. And I don't see Todd Bowley, who has a really good relationship with him, wanting him to go for any less than 60, 70 million. So who's going to pay that?
Yeah, no, he needs to prove himself on the pitch, and he needs to redeem himself to Chelsea fans before we let him back into the squad. That's for sure.
I agree. Let's move on. Some more sort of news around managerial takeover and managerial change. Ruben Amorim has effectively taken himself out of the race of the new manager at Chelsea, as reported by David Ornstein this morning, The Athletic. Thoughts on that, Theo? What do you think? Because I think it's, it's one that you mentioned, I think, last week on our episode. But what's your thoughts on Ruben taking himself out? Nagelsmann's still obviously hot favourite with Luis Enrique as well. But I know you mentioned Amorim as one of those sort of other candidates potentially that we might be looking into.
Yeah, so David Ornstein's just put up a tweet from The Athletic saying that Chelsea reduced permanent head coach search from 5 to 10 candidates to a handful as process moves towards appointment in coming weeks. Race is still open, no firm favourite. Ruben Amorim, respected but not expected to figure in the final stages. So clearly we took the time to maybe talk to him, talk to his agent, maybe assess his profile. But it seems now that we're more leaning towards Nagelsmann. I think he's the hot favourite, like you mentioned, and I think that was reported yesterday. And I would kind of think that the second option after that is Luis Enrique, who are the two kind of logical favourites. In terms of Ruben Amorim, I think it would have been a bit of a risk potentially. I think I don't know where else he's managed outside of Sporting Lisbon. That being said, what he has achieved at Sporting Lisbon is pretty remarkable. I think their first Liga NOS title in over a decade or 2 decades even. He's really loved amongst the Sporting fans. He seems like he knows what he's doing as well in the Europa League. Knocked out Arsenal in a game at the Emirates. I think we were all very pleased about that. And I'm not sure you got to watch the game against Juventus on Thursday night, but Sporting were a better team, much better team. So he's got them playing some really good football. I know that in the league it's not really reflected. They're currently fourth and behind Benfica, Porto, and Braga. But a very good manager. I think eventually I think he's a type of profile and name that will come to the Premier League, whether it's not Chelsea or be maybe one of the other clubs. But I do think definitely keep your eye on him. If it doesn't happen now, I think, like I said, it's going to happen eventually. And I still feel like there's a bit of a Mourinho in him, kind of. Hopefully Mourinho and not Villas-Boas, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely more Mourinho. I think I read earlier as well that he was also interviewed or potentially contacted when before when Thomas Tuchel left. So he's obviously been on the radar for Chelsea for some time as well. And like you said, he's doing really good at Sporting, doing really well there. I do feel like it potentially at the moment would be a risk, and I still think Julian Nagelsmann is another risk as well with the players that we've currently got. So I think he's only 38, so still relatively young
Yeah.
as a manager. So I think he's still got plenty of time ahead of him. There's nothing to say, in the next couple of years, I'm sure we'll be having the same discussion about who the next Chelsea manager is going to be, the way that the current owners are hiring and firing, that we might be talking about him in a couple of years, potentially coming to Chelsea as well. So I think he's got a lot of time, and I think time's on his side. But very interesting to see that he's pulled out, or that the interest has cooled down. Um, and I think I did also read as well, just to finish on the managerial part, is I think they're hoping, Chelsea are hoping to have someone in place, a new manager in place in the next couple of weeks or so. To something I've been screaming for so long is we need to have a manager. We need to know the direction we're going in terms of manager. The manager needs to be in before the season ends. We need to have all that set up so that when we get to the end of the season, we can assess what needs to happen in terms of transfers, in terms of who stays, who goes. And it allows that new manager to come in fresh before the preseason to evaluate the squad, get ready for preseason properly, as opposed to coming in mid preseason. And obviously we're in the States, something the part of the summer series with, I think it's 5 of the Premier League clubs as well. So we're going to be over in the States doing a small tour there. So you want that manager to come in early to be able to assess and do all of that before we fly out there. But very interesting. I'm going to ask you again. I think I asked you last week. I think I said I'm still Luis Enrique. I'm assuming you're still Luis Enrique. I think you said last week.
I'm very 50-50. I literally, yeah.
I'm sticking
It
with that.
feels like every time I read their profiles and their kind of style of management, I kind of get attracted to both of them. But I do agree. I think we need to have something in place in the next coming weeks. You look back at United last season;
Yep.
they had Ralph Ragnick in charge as interim from November to the end of the season. But I think Eric Ten Hag might have been confirmed this time last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And he skipped his summer holidays to come in June, implement what he wanted on the training ground, meet the players there at Manchester United. And now it seems to be going well for him at United. So I really hope the next manager comes in the next few weeks and knows what he wants straight away, gets to meet the players, gets to work with the players, maybe has a few one-on-ones with them at Cobham, is in attendance at Stamford Bridge to watch us play. But yeah, in terms of who I want between Enrique
I hope it's not
or
Ragnick.
Nagelsmann.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I'm very 50-50. Maybe I think leaning more towards Enrique, given his kind of international pedigree and his CV potentially.
Yeah. Someone did mention to me just again. So I don't think Enrique, and I haven't fact checked this, but it just sounded about right. That he hasn't managed at club level for just under 8 years. So
Yeah,
that does kind of make me think. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a long time to be out of club football to then come back into it, but he still kept himself active. He's still been involved in football.
And the other thing I was going to say is what I do worry a little is the manager that we don't hire. I think Spurs will hire.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Nagelsmann has turned down Spurs. So if we
has he? Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I read that he's on the brink of turning Spurs down, and I think they're trying to lure Pochettino back. So you could be right. I mean, look, stranger things have happened. Lukaku's coming back to Chelsea in a couple of months, so stranger things have happened. So let's talk about tomorrow's game. Big game. I am going to say it for this one. It is a must win. It is a big game. Do I see it happening? Do I see us scoring 3 goals and keeping Real Madrid quiet and not letting them score a goal? I don't see it happening, but I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to start with you first. What's your thoughts on tomorrow's game? Do we have any chance at all to turn around this 2-0 from the first leg?
I always like to look at the past and like what's happened in the past. We've turned around 2-0 goal deficits last season. Same fixture, 3-1 down after the first leg. We came back to, I think, 3-0 at one stage at the Bernabeu. Took it to extra time with 3-1. So it is possible, but I think a lot has changed at Chelsea Football Club since that. New manager, new players. We're not playing football that's particularly attractive or nice to watch. We can't score a bloody goal as well. So is it possible? Absolutely not. No, I don't think so.
I thought it's
I'll
in.
keep it short and sweet. No, I mean, I was kind of like building up towards it, but I think our expectations are relatively low. But I think you never know. If we get an early goal, there might be a bit of belief, but we also need to keep the likes of Vinicius quiet again, Benzema quiet again, Rodrigo, Valverde, Asensio, and that's going to be a big challenge. And if we play anywhere near like we did defensively against Madrid at the Bernabeu, or like we did against Brighton, then they're just going to take every single one of their chances, and it's going to be a very busy night for Kepa between the sticks again.
I agree. That was going to be one of my questions, and I suppose there's no better time to do that. But what would be your lineup? Would you keep, obviously, if Mendy isn't fit, which if he wasn't fit for Saturday, you'd assume he's not fit for Tuesday. But what would be your lineup to face Real Madrid? Before you answer that, I'm just going to say that Vinicius Junior and Benzema both didn't play at the weekend, so they are fresh. They train. They're back in training. They are fresh as anything. So I just wanted to caveat that before you said anything, because I think we're going to have to go with the back five, regardless of Cucurella's performances. But I'll stop there and I'll allow you to reel off your 11.
It's tricky because I don't want to see Cucurella feature anywhere near the 11, but given Chilwell's injury, he might have to at left wing back. Koulibaly injured. Is Fofana suspended? I don't know.
No, he only picked up a yellow, but
No,
he should
okay.
be okay. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see if you bring back a player like Aspi for his leadership qualities in this type of game in the back three, or if you play James alongside Fofana and Silva, and maybe have Loftus-Cheek at right wing back, or if you play Chalobah again. It's very hard to say. I'm struggling with my 11, but I know that two midfielders need to be Enzo and Kante.
Yep.
I haven't seen enough from Kovacic to think that he deserves to start again. So I would go with Mason Mount as the player slightly ahead of the two midfielders, and then the two strikers. Sorry, and then I'd go with Felix and potentially Havertz as the two up front.
Yeah, mine's not much different to that. To be fair, I think I'd obviously if Kepa's the only fit goalkeeper in terms of first choice, then I'd go with him. Reece James would be my right wing back. I would play Cucurella as left wing back, but I think that's more forced than want. I think we don't really have a choice. I wouldn't want to bring Aspie back into a game where he's missed so much football. I don't want to see Reece James or Pulisic or Sterling as a left wing back. I just don't. I don't agree with that. I don't like it. So he's our only choice. And to be fair, I think that role suits him better than as a left centre back. So I think my three centre backs would be Fofana, Silva, Trevor Chalobah. Two midfield like you, Kante, Enzo. Again, I'd have Mason Mount as I did, I think, on the Brighton game, just ahead of him. And then I think I'll go for a two of Felix and Havertz up front. I think Sterling I wouldn't use. Mudryk looked really good against Brighton, but I just don't know why he's not really been in the team as much. And I think this is a must-win game, so you do potentially have to go with a bit more experience in this game. He says with Cucurella as left wing back, but I think we haven't got a choice. I think we have to. I think the lineup is a lineup, but I think it's how we play which will matter to me. You know, I don't care who goes out there. I think we just have to try and get 3 goals. And I know it sounds stupid, but we have done crazier things in Champions League nights before. You know, and I always bring this up on the podcast, but I just remember that Juventus game, you know, where we hammered Juventus, and it was a really good Juventus team. I think it was 4-0. You know, so things can happen in football. Champions League nights are just what they are. I am gonna be optimistic. I think we'll win. I don't think we'll win by 3 goals. I just don't. I think we'll win, maybe 2-0, 2-1. But I just can't see us. You know, Vinicius Junior fresh, Benzema fresh, Tony Cruz, Luka Modric, you know, Rodrigo again. It's going to be more of the same from last week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think crazy things have happened at Chelsea Football Club. I agree. It's going to be a big ask. I think we'll score. We might even score first. Maybe another fluky deflected goal. You never know.
We love a fluke.
But I think Madrid will score 1 or 2. So I think we'll lose 2-1 this one. Same scoreline from Brighton.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2-1. I think we'll win. I think we'll win 2-1, but it will just be too little. I don't think it's. I think it would be a shame if we did win 2-1 because I'd hate to see us put in a really good performance when we should have done that last week or we should have done that against Brighton. You know, I think I'm at the point now where I don't want to see these players start turning up and kicking, you know, football and playing 9 out of 10s. You know, they should have done that at the start of the season. Um, One player I haven't actually mentioned and was very surprised, Hakim Ziyech playing on Saturday, um, didn't make any sense to me. But I do think if we win, we win. But I think it's too little, too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree, but I just want, like you said earlier, I just want to see a good performance, something that gives the fans a bit of belief. And I kind of want the crowd to be riled up like they were for that Dortmund game, kind of all behind the fans, the 12th man. Because if we are going to get knocked out for what probably be our last Champions League game in a very long time,
Yep.
European game, if anything, then we need to go out with a bang and kind of show, Madrid and the rest of Europe that, this is, we are here, we want to be behind the team. So yeah, let's make it a big Champions League night regardless.
I agree. I mean, it's a shame we can't play the ladies who are doing really well. Who done brilliantly against Aston Villa at the weekend, reaching the FA Cup final. They'll face Manchester United. I'm not sure of the date of when the final is. But they had the magic kit on, the kit that you thought was going to give you some luck with João Felix. They had that kit on, our third kit. 1-0, Sam Kerr sending Chelsea women into a final. I think this is the third final. Third season in a row. So a lot to play for. Chelsea women are in the final. Really good for them. You know, congratulations to them. I think they achieved a lot under Emma Hayes, who's a brilliant coach. You know, really good what she does as well. What's your thoughts on that, Theo, just before we wrap up?
Yeah, huge achievement once again. Like you said, third FA Cup final in a row for the Chelsea women. In the Champions League semi-final as well.
Yeah.
We're playing Barcelona on Saturday at 12:30. So two big achievements. It could be, if the Chelsea men are doing well, it could be a big season for the Chelsea women. And I think second in the Women's Super League with a game in hand behind Manchester United. So potentially a treble is on the cards, which is really exciting.
All
to play for. So if we're not going to have nothing to be proud of with the Chelsea men this season, at least we can be really proud of our ladies. And like you said, Emma Hayes is a fantastic coach. Maybe if she can sneak in a dressing room at halftime on Tuesday, then maybe that might give us that little push and extra bit of motivation we need tactically as well.
She doesn't need to sneak in. They should be rolling the red carpet out for her. She should be taking charge of the men's team by the looks of it. But really congratulations to the women's team. And yeah, looking forward to the final. Before we wrap up, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you hit the notification bell if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And also, more importantly, hit the Linktree link in the description. That will take us to all our podcast episodes and all our social accounts as well. Theo, as always, thank you very much. Episode 90 from the Shed End. Until next week, we'll be back. Thank you very much for watching and listening.